Hi friends, Sergeant Host Eric here. Host of Talking with Famous People and Typology Law Enforcement Officer. I have before us today a young individual who calls himself Rosa and also calls himself an ENTP. Now, my initial thought was this individual is probably an ENTP based on the topic of the video. That was my initial thought. But I haven't really, I started watching some of it, and I'm going to start it over because I wasn't really paying that much attention. I started reading what's going on with this individual's channels. So, this here. My name is Dominic. My preferred name is Rosa. Reflector Memorier, Radiant Human Energy. My personality type ENTP type 4W3, the artist, the thinker, the perfectionist, something like that. SXXP, SP. Semi-strict vegan, non-religious, accurate truthist, self-decided androgynous, self-decided pansexual. I have mental health disorders, one of those being Asperger's. I'm not sure what else I have. I'd like to get cosmetic surgery to have a feminine guy, sexy appearance. Well, let me start by saying you don't have Asperger's, for sure. I've watched enough of your video to tell you do not have Asperger's. I worked in special ed for quite a long time, and I'm very familiar with the autism spectrum. And you do not have Asperger's. There's no other way to put it meaningfully. That's not what it looks like. The thing you're talking about is not Asperger's. And one thing to say about Asperger's is it correlates with INTJ or potentially ISTJ. Usually INTJ. It's reflective of polar FE gone haywire. Just as ADHD is reflective of an action function, either SE or NE, as a dominant function, and it's too much of it. So that, I think, is a better understanding of any linkage between cognitive functions and disorders like that. Those are the two that I feel confident about. You definitely don't have Asperger's because you're not an INTJ. You say you're an ENTP. That remains to be seen, but let's find out. Let me just say additionally, I have one example in my past of somebody who definitely was an ENTP being transsexual. That is to say, getting like boobs put on them and stuff. I want to stress that that's a bad idea. Your plan here, Rosa, is a bad idea. You want to call yourself Rosa and act girl-like and stuff? Fine. Surgery is a bad idea. That's called body dysmorphia. And that actually is a mental disorder. So you shouldn't ever, and this includes like getting a boob job if you're a woman. You shouldn't do it. It's not healthy. But this kind of stuff that's particularly contraindicative to your actual authentic body self, your authentic SI, is particularly egregious. You don't want to do it. It's a bad idea. Okay? Now, as far as I can tell, you're a perfectly normal dude because this is what you have under one of your video lists as hot. Well, you're correct about that. This chick is smoking hot and so cute, and I totally want to shove parts of my body into her parts of her body. Right there. Just part those lips right open and boom. Choke on it. Anyway, that's normal. You don't want to get yourself made more like a sissy if you think that's hot, which it definitely is. This chick is fucking smoking hot. And it's definitely a chick. There's no way this is a transsexual. If you watch the whole video, you'd agree with me. I didn't even know they had videos like this on YouTube. But why would you bother watching something that's not porn, but its whole purpose is to be porn? I don't know. So yeah, nix the cosmetic surgery idea. That is you are literally, when you do that, assaulting yourself. Don't do that. That's a stupid idea. Be as pansexual as you want. Be as girly haired as you want. You know, act as fruity as you want or whatever. But don't start cutting into your physical body. It's never a healthy thing to do because of your identity stuff. Your ontology is something that can only be really manifestly experienced in conjunction with your true body and your true self. Your true body is a male body. You need to embrace that. So that's all there is to it. Eric's lecture about transsexualism. Let's see if he's an ENTP. Oh yeah, he's super quiet. I can't hear anything, actually. Oh, I see, he's muted, that's why.
Interaction with each other will eventually form hue, which is all the other energetic forces and laws. But they're all based off dark.
Alright, so let's find out.
And those in interaction with each other will eventually form hue, which is all the other energetic forces and laws. But they're all based off darkness and or brightness in one form or another. Now, where does all this come from? Well, all this comes from is, well, obviously, as I said, darkness, mechanical energy. And how does the universe do all this? Well, the universe is going to eventually be absorbed into a gigantic black hole at some point in the future. And what will happen is, as all the color, so darkness, brightness, and hue, basically, when darkness, brightness, and hue get sucked up into a gigantic black hole, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to reach its maxima, and then it's going to have to reverse on itself. But before it does that, it has to do something, and that is everything that is anything other than darkness has to become darkness. And so once it reverts out, it's going to but all that darkness that's created from absorbing everything into it and reaching its maxima, it's going to, that darkness has to reverse itself, but it's not going to reverse it all at once. It's going to do it in a consecutive, it's going to do it in a kind of like step-by-step process. So if you imagine you have darkness at the core, and then brightness at the core, and then darkness around that, well, the darkness is going to interact, so the brightness is going to interact with the darkness and form hue, and that's basically the Big Bang. The Big Bang is happening.
All right, so he's just talking in metaphor right now. Darkness and lightness and hue. These aren't actual things, you know. So it doesn't necessarily eliminate ENTP, but my initial gut is not ENTP, and I'm not sure what. But Kim's initial gut. Kim was here before I started the video, and when this was playing, as I was looking through some shit, and she said not ENTP. And she said, who was it that this guy reminded her of? It reminds me, now that I think of it, of iced whiskey, which would be ENFP. But I'm still totally unsure. I'll try to remember who it was Kim said it reminded her of.
Now it's this combination of darkness and brightness and hue and all this in a amazing complexity. Our brains, all of our personalities, are just based off energetic force and law. There's 16 personality categories, and I'm not, I can go through them all, but what's the point? You can read up anyway. Radiant, mechanical, ionization, gravity, kinetic, potential, and I think it was wrong. Kinetic energy is the mobilization, it's the external mobilization of an entity. It's nothing to do with motion, really. Motion is actually reflection, which is brightness, or absorption, which is darkness, which is mechanical energy. So, gravity is just like an internal centralization force. So imagine if you have a huge mass of arrows going in different directions, there's going to be an accumulation or a tint that all of them are going to be affected by in some form or another. If you imagine, so imagine those arrows in different directions, where they're going to be tinted in a certain direction, and that's basically what gravity is. It's just a tinting of a tinting of a mass of darkness, brightness, and hue. That makes sense.
Okay, so again, he's still just talking in metaphor. I don't really know what he's trying to get at here. Uh, well, let's continue. I don't know.
Sense. But yeah, so I mean, I can go through it all with you if you want to, but that's pretty much so. What's going to happen in a very long time from now is a gigantic black hole will be formed, and we will be forced to go inside of it. No matter what we try and do, there's no way. You can't fight darkness. Darkness is here, and so it will take us over, and it will suck us in and out. Now, is there some kind of like rolling the dice kind of system whilst that process is taking place, where it's all converting into a big bang? That's something to think about. Is there a multiverse generator behind all this that's forming this darkness, and we just can't see it because we're inside the universe particle? That's something to think about. But at the end of the day, I think it's more or less a looping mechanism for a very, very long time, regardless which side it's on. And yeah, clearly there is no amazing creator behind it, because obviously, if darkness is the origin, then that's it.
Why is it so obvious? Like, oh, you didn't do any argumentational work to make that obvious to the listener. You haven't, if you laid out a case for an anti-theist position, then that's fine. But you need to know whether you're affirming or negating something here. At first, it sounds like you're affirming the origin of the universe being no origin, that there's a cyclical loop. Your justifications for it are all metaphor, and none of them convincing of anything. And then you make the claim that that affirmation somehow accomplished the job of a negation of God. It didn't do anything of the sort, and I don't know where you get off making that claim. So let's continue.
There isn't. I'll prove it. The system works. You can see black.
You didn't prove anything.
You can see the hue around you. You can see the darkness and brightness. I mean, look, there's the radiant energy. And if I just go turn the light back, you can see darkness here on me and everywhere. But there's some darkness here, not complete darkness, but that's some darkness for you. That's mechanical. So basically, what we're sitting on, what I'm sitting on here, when I move it around, what I'm sitting on is darkness, basically, or mechanical energy. So when you go into space and you see the darkness, that's just mechanical energy. It's just absorptive force. That's why when you're assuming, even if you move in space, it's going to push you in the direction that you're going in, because you're a reflection, or you're actually a complex configuration of darkness, brightness, and hue. And so obviously, whatever one is the most dominant is going to be the one that you're going to be at. So
okay, this is insane, because of course, yes, there is the visual spectrum of light. Darkness, brightness, hue are among the terms we use to describe the visible spectrum. But that doesn't mean that I'm all darkness, lightness, and hue. For example, my words aren't darkness, lightness, or hue. Well, I mean, those in that sentence contained all three words, but physical objects aren't darkness, lightness, and hue. Agents observe darkness, lightness, and hue. It sounds like you're going towards some sort of relativist physics notion. Being a truth seeker doesn't mean rejecting God necessarily. There's lots of good reasons to presume that God's as viable and explanations as any alternative, and one has to look holistically at what the explanation you're providing does for you. It sounds to me like you're mostly positioning yourself as distinct from and intellectually better than theists. That's my gut response to it. And that does tend to correlate with TI types, but not necessarily. I think nowadays maybe it's more TE types, because TI types like to negate things, and atheism is kind of ripe for negation. So, I mean, you're negating here too, but they focus on determinism. The pro-determinist approach tends to correlate with TE more, which brings me back to ENFP probably. But, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ideational stuff going on here. Could be an SFP, I guess. Let's see.
most likely it's going to be absorptive, and so if you have absorption here and absorption over here, they're going to pull into each other. You see what I'm saying? But that's going to keep happening because you're going, you're moving in a direction. So that's my theory for why we move in space. Whether or not that's true or not is up for debate, but the way it's still mechanical energy or radiant energy or a combination of both. And you want to know what photons look like? They probably are either a triangle or square shape. For some reason, my entire entity wants to say that it is just square. It makes sense kind of because you've got all four directions, and so and all the other directions can interact with each other anyways because it's all the same thing anyways. And so that's my theory on that. But if it's not a square, then it's probably something like a triangle or a rotated square maybe. Either way, it's what defines the hue is the fact that at inversion of that square, which actually has a property effect, which is it's going to be darkness or it's going to be brightness or whatever. Darkness, brightness, and then you have the direction. So if it's going up, it's going to go up. If it's going right, it's going to go right. If it's going left, it's going to go left.
So protons are square because they can move in four directions? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would you conclude... What? Let me listen to a little bit more of this.
Then you can have black and white. Darkness and brightness coming together. Well, one's going to be reflecting, one's going to be absorbing. And when they're touching each other, it's going to form a kind of bizarre shape change. And that's what colour is. Colour is basically the shape change. Really, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But if you imagine that there's a frequency that things are moving in, and if you touch them together, it's going to wobble them around because they're trying to interact with each other. It's no more different than me sitting on a chair. It's basically the same thing that's happening. Is that you're sitting on a chair, and the interaction of that square with the other square, or triangle with the other triangle, whatever, it's still going to have a shape deformation, and because of that shape deformation, you get a different color because of that. It's just how it is. It's not something to think about. There's no origin of it. It is just how it is. It's just a consequence. People might say, well, where did hue actually come from? Well, it's just the interactions of darkness and brightness, whichever program it is. I mean, it's quite obvious when you play about with the RGB selection software. You can see obviously what it is. It's nothing to hide. So we know what.
That doesn't explain what darkness and lightness are. The fact that we can understand color as interactions of darkness and lightness, well, but I can understand interactions of darkness and lightness as varying shades of black and white, and we don't have any color. So your explanation is not very meaningful. It doesn't seem to really do any ideational work, per se. The other thing I'd point out is that darkness and lightness don't absorb or not absorb each other, or reflect off each other. Light reflects off of objects, or sometimes objects absorb certain frequencies of light. It's the observer who experiences color, and it doesn't exist outside of the observer's experience. So it seems to me like you're not checking your ideas for consistency against definitional limits. Like, when you say darkness and lightness are absorbing each other, you're not reflecting on the fact that darkness and lightness are indications of a perceptual experience. They're not attributes of a thing. And so, as a consequence, the whole cascade of ideas that surrounds it, I'm not sure if it follows from it, I think it more just surrounds it, is fruit from a poisonous tree nevertheless. So this doesn't make any sense. What you're saying is just like a poem. It's like a bunch of metaphor, and it's not really I gain no insight about the universe from this video. Now, before I continue though, I want to stress that I want to talk about Demon Windu's comment and some stuff that a person who was in the room said to me, a guest in the room, who might have also been Demon Windu, I don't know, but about me being a bully. I do not want to be a bully. I do care about the feelings of the people I'm talking about. I try to be respectful and direct and honest and fair, most importantly, fair. It is true that sometimes I will find hilarious some ESFP who thinks she's a NTP, and that can be somewhat callous towards that person's emotions. But as I pointed out in the previous video, first of all, no good comes from persisting in a lie. Period. As Dr. Phil says, you can't begin healing before you face the truth. You've got to face the truth. So that's point one. Demon Wendy pointed out that a lot of people have on YouTube have various mental disorders or something. I don't know if that's true, but then I went to this person there immediately thereafter reading that video, or shortly after reading those comments and getting that feedback, and lo and behold, this guy says in the description of the channel that he's got various issues going on mentally. So, Rosa, let me just say the following. I do not want you to feel invalidated by this, though it's quite possible you will. I want to stress that whatever depression or bad feelings you may be experiencing, those are temporary. You're very young, and your life will change dramatically in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, the next 15 years, the next 20 years. Each of those chunks of time will be dramatic changes. Don't get too swept up in the moment. What you think right now, what you feel right now, what you want to do right now. Try to put aside for some time a need to have some sort of conclusiveness here. Just allow yourself to grow and allow yourself to be a multifaceted person. Don't allow yourself to be defined by identity struggles or things like that. Be an individual first. Reject the labels if you can. And try not to go crazy with this whole transsexual stuff. It's not a good idea. I'm not biased against transsexuals. I'm just saying, if you cut out parts of your body, that's unhealthy, always. The end. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People. Take care of yourself, be good, and be healthy out there, and don't be sad, and, I don't know, emotional maintenance shit, etc.